Hey, how about you, everybody? Welcome into the Auburn Live Recruiting Show. I'm your host, Jeffrey Lee, Senior Recruiting Editor for Auburn Live on 3. Today is Wednesday, April the 10th, 2024. For you, it's Tuesday, April the 9th. We're recording late Tuesday night. Keep that in mind moving forward. We have a fantastic show for you today. Why? Because there's a lot going on, a lot going to unfold in the Auburn recruiting sphere over the next 4 to 5 days. We're here to touch on a little bit of it all. And joining me 79% of the time, 100% of the time he's here, Mr. Alan Head. How about you, Alan Head?
How about you, big dog? Hey, look, that percentage is up to 79 with your handicapping skills. I'm feeling pretty good here.
Cole Pinkston is enjoying a couple of nights with his lovely bride of a few years.
Yep.
He's kid-free. He's in on the East Coast, enjoying some downtime, and hope he is enjoying it as much as he should be. Cole's been working hard, man, bringing it to you. Mr. Allenhead and I will do our best to bring everybody up to speed, give you some insight on what to expect over the coming days. There are several commitment announcements coming, and we will try to hit on all of those, and then we'll get to some questions from the corner. Before we get started, if you're in or around Auburn, Opelika, Lee County, and you're looking to sell your house, looking to buy a new house, looking to move into town, look no further for the help you need. Absolutely fantastic realtor and a pretty damn good wife, too. Miss Jessica Andrus with the Talents Group. Give her a call, 334-704-4442. She is a 5-star realtor, even though she's got a lot of 4s in her number. She's a 5-star realtor, folks. On 3 consensus. If you don't believe us, just ask us. And anybody that's ever used her will absolutely back us up. She is fantastic. I'm telling you, she will answer your calls even when I don't want her to. I'm working on that. Anyway, give her a call. Jessica Andrus with the Talents Group, 334-704-4442. Tell her we sent you. All right, Mr. Allen Head. First and foremost, let's get to the most relevant topic, which is if people are listening to this on Wednesday morning, which we hope they are, then Mr. 4-star offensive tackle Carday Smith from Williamson High School in Mobile is expected, or he's scheduled to, announce his commitment between Auburn, Mississippi State, Florida State. Cole and I have predictions in for Auburn, and I still feel good about that. I feel very good about that waking up Wednesday morning that Auburn could add another offensive lineman to the class. Mr. Allen Head, your thoughts on Mr. Carday Smith?
Well, on Carday Smith, let's talk about him. He's a kid that's, in my opinion, when they saw him for winter eval, they were a little bit taken back at how much he's kind of grown and developed since his junior year, maybe even sophomore year, since they saw him last. A kid that's still blossoming as a prospect somewhat. I think there's room for development there. But a kid that's got all the raw tools that you need to be a successful offensive lineman in the SEC. He's athletic. He's long. Got good power. So another valuable pickup in a relatively big offensive line haul that Auburn's trying to bring in this year. You're losing 4. I think you're trying to add anywhere between 5 to 7 offensive linemen in this class. So this just brings another quality offensive lineman to the table that you've now got into your stable. And so anytime you can do that, when you think about Auburn's history over the last 10 years, from the Gus Malzahn era moving into today, offensive line recruiting has not been probably what it should be, Jeffrey, not for us to continuously be successful in the SEC. The day Hugh Freeze stepped foot on campus, he seems to have really decided he's going to remedy that situation. And this is just another person that helps build that quality depth that we both know that you need on the lines of scrimmage in the SEC.
I really feel like he visited with his mother March the 23rd, and I really feel like that visit put Auburn over the top. It answered all the questions that his mama had, from NIL to academics to everything. And that's actually when I put in my prediction shortly after he left. He has since visited Mississippi State. He visited Mississippi State this past weekend, or actually it was last weekend. When was it?
2 weekends ago.
2 weekends ago. That's what I said. So, and I tell you what, Mississippi State put on a nice little show here. It's a little bit closer than I was expecting. Florida State is still in this. He's going to visit. Hey, I think he's got an official visit scheduled to Mississippi State June 22nd. He's expected to go back to Florida State later this month. So some visits may continue to happen, but I feel like once Auburn gets him in the class, maybe things will change. But I feel very good about Auburn heading into that announcement on Wednesday. Thursday, Allen Head, allegedly,
Yeah.
Alvin Henderson, the 4-star running back from Elba, Alabama, will announce his decision. I think his 5 is Auburn, Miami, Oregon, Penn State, Florida State.
Correct.
He visited Penn State this past weekend. From everything that I've heard, the visit was very impressive to him. It created a lot of buzz, a lot of Penn State buzz coming out of that visit. I will say Wednesday morning, Cole and I again have picks in. Wow, let me see this. Is Penn State now the leader in the RPM?
That's what it looks like to me.
My goodness, I'm going to have to pull that. I was going to say I've talked to some people on this, and I will say Tuesday morning, Penn State had a lot of buzz. Matter of fact, I think he received a couple of crystal balls to Penn State on 24/7, and over on 3, somebody's had to put in predictions because Chad has and Steve Wiltfong have put in on 3 recruiting predictions to Penn State. When was that? That was
probably
that was Tuesday afternoon. Both of them. Woo! So maybe that Penn State buzz was worthy. Interesting. I don't know what to feel about that.
I honestly don't know what to tell you with regard to Alvin. It has been all over the map with him where I've had sourcing close on this situation. I mean, I don't think it's any secret, and I'm not I'm from Coffee County. I'm from Elba. I know people in that area. And so it's been all over the map with him, where it's been Auburn at times, it's been Florida State at times, it's been Miami at times, and now the most recent buzz is Penn State. So it's not going to surprise me if it's anybody within that top group. But I do think there's some confidence at Auburn that they can still get this done. But we'll see. Again, I don't feel strong enough about Alvin going in any one direction to put a prediction for any school. That's what I'll say.
You know what? If I had the ability, the capability on 3 to just take my prediction off the board and be neutral again, I would.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing with Alvin. I think I've said this before. If Auburn wants him, and by all accounts they do, regardless of what he does this week, I think he still ends up at Auburn. I will, man. And Tuesday morning, I think Auburn felt okay about Alvin Henderson.
Right.
I think Tuesday afternoon, they felt, after a conversation with Alvin, I think the confidence level at Auburn was up.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the last I had heard going into this show. The recording of the show, I had not seen the on 3 predictions from Chad or Steve. But to be honest with you, even if he chooses somewhere else on Wednesday or Thursday.
Look, I'm reminded, this situation with him, okay, it screams KJ Bolden to me, okay? Regardless of what he does, I think there's a high probability he ends up at an in-state school. It's a popular thing to think, I'm going to go out of state. And then when you get into your senior year and you start to play your last game and your family starts to think, oh, I got to travel all the way to Pennsylvania to see you play, or I got to go all the way to Miami to see you play. The attractive component of going out of state, if all money is equal, kind of starts to fade somewhat. And so that proximity to home starts to play in some. So we'll see how it goes. Again, I will tell you, when I asked around, there was still confidence at Auburn that they felt that they could get this done. So we'll see how it goes. I'm not going to count Hugh Freeze out, but again, I don't know what the kid's going to do. I honestly don't. He is the wild card of wild cards. I think he wants this to be unpredictable.
Yeah.
I don't think that kid wants anybody thinking they know they've got him at a peg on what he's going to do. And so it's not going to shock me if he picks Florida State, Miami, Auburn, Penn State, or Oregon. He could go with any one of the 5. And Steve Wiltfong, Chad Simmons, those are 2 of the best in the business. And no way am I sliding them or their intel by saying that. They get paid a lot of money to do what they do because they're the best at it. But As somebody who knows people in that part of the country, I would tell you, I do not trust anything he is telling anybody at this point, period. I just don't.
I know Tuesday morning, Penn State felt very good about Alvin. I don't know if I said this already, but by Tuesday afternoon, Auburn, the confidence level at Auburn was up. So, and you know what the thing about Alvin, like nothing's over with him. I
No.
think in the end, in December, come December 4th or whatever it is, the first Wednesday in December, if the new signing day does in fact go through, if Auburn still wants him, I expect him to be in Auburn's class.
Right. And that's why I said KJ Bolden vibe on that one. Georgia just stood the course, right? In no way would they dissuade in their pursuit of KJ Bolden, knowing the entire time Kirby's like, okay, you can commit to Tallahassee by all means. But when it comes signing day, I know who you're going to sign with, and it's going to be Georgia. I think the same would be true of Alvin Henderson if this coaching staff decides they want him as you near signing day. If he commits elsewhere, because I don't think they're not kicking this kid out of the class. If he decides he wants to commit to Auburn, they'll keep him all the way through. But if he commits elsewhere and Auburn doesn't land a different back or still wants him, then I think they'll get him in the end. I honestly believe that.
Yeah, no doubt. If they don't get Alvin early on Thursday, early in the recruiting cycle, I feel like that opens the door up even more for a guy like Osman, or one of those other tier one backs. I feel like if they get Alvin, it's going to be more difficult to get another one of those tier one backs, and probably you're looking at a tier two guy, which
yeah. And I would tell you what, I think the kid from Tennessee is moving into tier one status. I'm trying to think
Mills
of
Knight.
Yes, Mills Knight. I think he's moving into tier one status. So he could be a guy you could potentially pivot to if Alvin does come off the board and go someplace else. And I'm with you, Jeffrey. And of course, one of our tier two options just came off the board. DeJuan Morris just committed to USC. Now, we'll see if that holds. Again, proximity to home tends to play into people's favor as you get closer to National Signing Day. But I think Auburn's got other tier two options as well. So,
yeah.
We'll see it.
Jasper Parker was one he visited not too long ago. Some others. And that's the thing about Alvin. I don't want to spend too much time on him because it's all going to be for naught. It's all going to be in vain.
I agree, man.
You never, and I think our listeners and subscribers are just about over the recruitment, not him as a player,
right?
Not wanting him on the team, but his recruitment of Hourglass, and it's coming soon. He's been saying that since, I don't know, I think last summer. One guy who said coming soon was Dante Core, the unranked cornerback from Fort Walton Beach who visited Auburn this past weekend for 8A, left with Auburn at the top, had all intentions to commit on Monday at noon, had considered doing it on Sunday, went ahead and scheduled Monday at noon. And I tell you, Ole Miss didn't want him to do it. LSU didn't want him to do it, and put the pressure on him on Sunday. And he since has backed off of that, obviously, and is going to wait. I still think Auburn is the very, very tough. They will be very, very tough to beat. And I think a commitment could actually come in the next week or two. I think a return trip to Auburn could be in the cards for him, just kind of a run up here and check it out one more time, and maybe a commitment there shortly thereafter. Certainly somebody to come keep an eye on. And Alan, we talked about him before the show. Even though he's unranked, his offers, his offers are obviously impressive. The buzz, and then his film, and what we saw in person, man, this guy is impressive.
Auburn has a rich history of finding 3-star gems at defensive back. Okay. And it goes back all the way to the Philip Lawley era, in my opinion, and maybe even before that. But Philip Lawley could sure pick out some defensive backs. This young man has long arms, good frame, good height, length, better, above average speed, good hips, can play the ball in phase. I mean, when you watch his tape, and he's playing good competition in Fort Walton High School. I mean, you're playing schools in Pensacola and other places. So these are talent-rich areas. And if you're a 3-star defensive back in Florida, that's kind of like being a 4-star defensive back in some of these other states. You know what I mean? Like, the level of competition and the speed on the field in that state particularly, you know what I mean? It's tough, and you are battle tested when you get to wherever you're going to be. And look at the top three. You're battling Ole Miss and LSU, two teams that have done extremely well. I mean, top half of the league teams in the SEC these past couple of years. Obviously, LSU is a place that's won multiple national championships and has a head coach in Brian Kelly that is, regarded as one of the best in the country. Lane Kiffin is done very well at Ole Miss, and his defensive coordinator, Pete Golding, outstanding defensive mind. And they've scouted this guy and they're pursuing him, and they want him just as badly as Auburn does. So this is one, throw the ranking out a little bit. I think he's a guy whose ranking is going to change as more senior film becomes available on him. Maybe he decides to jump into the camp circuit somewhat, and that gets some more exposure or eyeballs on him some. But this is a kid that, I mean, when you watch it, and I'm not trying to brag on myself or anybody else, but when both Cole and I, are walking away from saying, hey, he's a take, like, I think you guys can feel okay with saying, all right, this is a guy that's legitimately SEC caliber, and we'd be fortunate to have him in the class.
Absolutely. I know Auburn's very high on this kid and gave him a red carpet treatment. And that's it's a good gauge for Cole and I when we're up there and we see what kind of attention these guys are getting. Almost what kind of tier which tier they're on. And certainly the coaches were holding his hand pretty much the entire visit up until he walked out the door. Finally, before we get to questions from the corner, maybe the biggest decision upcoming for Auburn is Hussein Longstreet, the four-star quarterback from California. He visited Auburn again, an official visit this past weekend for A-Day, and will announce his decision on the 14th, which I think, Alan, is Sunday.
Yes, it is.
So Sunday. Now, I know Cole's not here, but Cole talked to him after he left the visit, and Cole called me and said, wasn't great vibes.
Mm-hmm.
And we both obviously thought that was interesting. And, Monday morning, people close to his recruitment was kind of echoing the same thing. Like the vibes they were getting Monday and even Tuesday were A&M. And I think Wilt Fong put in, or he wrote an insider piece and said he was feeling A&M was still the team to beat, which kind of lined up. Now, I know Auburn talked to him. Kent Austin, Hugh Freeze, Jesse Stone, all those guys were around, got a chance to talk to him on Tuesday. Was that enough to kind of sway Auburn back? We don't know. The curious thing about this entire recruitment is not just Hussein, it's the quarterback recruiting of 2024, or this is the 2025 class?
2025.
2024 year, 2025 class. You've got Longstreet, you've got Juju Lewis committed to USC, still visiting Auburn. Auburn's still very much in the mix there. You've got KJ Lacey committed to Texas, visiting Auburn last weekend. Auburn's still very much in the mix there. And here was one of the things that was brought up. So, and I think we said Sunday on the show, on the call-in show, I felt like Auburn was in a good position. I don't know which one. I just feel like Auburn's in a good position to get one of those three guys.
I think they're just bound and determined to get one of those three. I think they've earmarked their top three, and they've basically decided, okay, we're going to do what's required to get one of these three. That's kind of where we're at with it. And I have one in my pocket as a pivot person in case something doesn't work out. But I said it on the board today. I think Auburn is more comfortable in their quarterback recruiting than I am. And they feel like they're in a good position to be able to get one of their top three. That's honestly how they feel about the situation. And I think, again, Steve Wiltfong, one of the best in the business, putting in a crystal ball today to Texas A&M does not mean that situation cannot change by the time we get to Sunday. I think it's very much on the table for it to change. Will it? I don't know. I probably would favor his information right now of it being Texas A&M at this moment. But I do think that there is still some negotiation there to be had and some conversation and just general recruiting. Hugh Freeze showed it last year. He wasn't ready to give in on Juice, I'm trying to think, Juice Solomon, and got him on, commitment day. Now, ultimately, he flipped back to South Carolina, but that just kind of shows you his mindset that when he's bound and determined to get a kid, he's going to get that kid. I don't know where they are on Husan Longstreet, if they are feeling that level of determined with him, or if they think, okay, we're ready to go ahead and maybe pursue one of those other two options a little bit more vigorously now. Maybe they do decide, hey, Juju is who we want to go all in on at this point. Or, hey, the in-state talent, right down the road in Mobile, that's who we want in this class. So I still think that there's some decision to be made about which one, but I'm with you, Jeffrey. Like after you guys said it, and then I kind of asked around, I think they are just bound and determined, you know what, we're getting one of these three. I don't know who it's going to be, but we're going to get one. And we're going to do what it takes to get it done.
It's going to be interesting to see what our topics of conversation are on next week's show. Zach in the back says Antoine Hill, could he be a dark horse? Should Auburn miss on those three? Antoine Hill from Georgia, I believe.
Yes, from South Georgia.
Was a name we heard early on. Could he be a dark horse?
I haven't heard his name mentioned at all. In fact, the other one that I have heard that they're going to take a look at is out in California, not in South Georgia. So it'll be interesting to see. And Zach, he's a good prospect. There's Antoine Hill has a lot of upside, but for some reason or another, this coaching staff just has, since he camped last summer, they just really haven't pursued him all that hard. I think they've recruited him, but for whatever reason, I mean, because I think if they were knocking down his door right now, I think he'd be in this class. I honestly believe that.
All right, questions from the corner. We'll probably have already hit on several of those, but we'll get to as many as possible. War Eagle of 95. Based on Fong's prediction about Husan, if he's correct, how hard are we going to pursue Juju? This is a good question. Even though we kind of hit on it vaguely, the quarterback general view of the quarterbacks. It's almost like, okay, if they do miss out on Longstreet, first of all, I don't think they give up on him. But if they do miss out on Longstreet, do you push for KJ or do you push for Juju?
So I think who the competition is for KJ, right? Like it's Texas, and I don't really think there's anybody else that Auburn's competing against, in my honest opinion. With Juju, it's more unknown. Are you competing against SC? Are you competing against Georgia?
Colorado.
Is Auburn in the mix? I mean, excuse me, is Alabama in the mix?
Right.
I've heard mixed things there about, how hard they're going to pursue Juju. So I don't know. I mean, I think if you're looking raw skill on tape, Juju's the better player. If you're looking at fit in a system, I think KJ Lacey is a fantastic fit for what Hugh Freeze wants to do. So realistically, to me, you got to make a determination about who you're matched up against. Do you think you can ultimately win that competition? And if you get him, how likely is he to stay at Auburn? Because that's another question you have to ask yourself these days.
Sure.
How likely are they to stay if they're not the immediate starter the second they step foot on campus? Because if you can't retain them, what's the point of bringing them in? Not a lot, right? So I think that's another part of this situation that you have to make sure that you're very adept at and know, like, hey, what I'm getting myself into. Because say there's a quarterback competition, obviously Peyton Thorne graduates, you do land Juju. He goes into a quarterback battle, Walker White's named the starter. What happens? Does he jump into the portal immediately, or does he stick around and fight? And the only person that can answer that question is the coaching staff who's actually getting a chance to talk to Juju. For those who don't know, Juju has people around him that make sure that what he says is very carefully measured. Okay? And that's about the best way that I can put it. But he doesn't give a whole lot to the media outside of the national guys. And it is a very censored narrative that is provided to them. I will say that.
Oof. Man, what an upcoming week we have in store. War Tigers 6. If Eric Winters commits, do you think that could help pull Zion Grady after today's report that Miami is trending? As a matter of fact, Wilt Fong predicted Eric Winters to Auburn and Zion Grady to Miami in the same day. And I will say this. I think Steve does his predictions, and I'm going to get him on this show soon, and he can explain it for himself. Love Steve. He's fantastic. What a fantastic addition by On Three. It's all, trending is the right way. I don't think anything's definite.
Right.
He thinks Zion Grady today will end up at Miami. He thinks Eric Winters, as of today, ends up at Auburn. He will change that a week from now if he feels differently. This is not locked in. Same for Husan Longstreet. Same for Alvin Henderson. If he gets new intel, he will. He is not afraid to change that pick. He is not going to ride it out and hope that he's right. So I keep that in mind, and that's obviously no slight to him, to Steve. That's just how he works. This is how he feels right now. Eric Winters, Cole's already got a prediction in for him, and it's almost like the Alvin Henderson deal. Like, is this one of those guys that Hugh Freeze is not going to let get away, even if he commits to wherever?
I think so. I think they are bound and determined to get Eric Winters in this class. I think there are two they are going to absolutely not let go, and that's Eric Winters and Anquan Vegans. I think they are dead set on landing both of those players in this class.
So that's he'll definitely. I mean, he's Anquan Fagans, Eric Winters, probably the top two defensive guys on the board. I'm sure there's a big D lineman in there somewhere, but this
maybe Nathaniel Marshall, right?
Nate Marshall, yeah, Nate Marshall, who Auburn made a move for. Do not forget that name.
No. And there are national writers outside of Steve Wiltfong that said that Auburn's didn't just make a move, made a move into the top four, along with Illinois, Michigan, and Miami. So, pretty good competition there.
Carnell's an Escalade.
Carnell, I like it.
Is an Escalade. I think there was a Carnell's Escalade back in the day on the bunker.
There was.
I wonder if it's the same guy.
I don't know.
Poster. He's a good poster.
He is.
If Longstreet chooses the Aggies, where will the biggest push be made at the quarterback position? I don't know that we can talk about this enough, to be honest with you. Juju, KJ, Longstreet, or someone else. What is your personal quarterback board? That's a great question, because I didn't get to that earlier, because I was going to say, if Auburn doesn't get Longstreet, of the two, Juju and KJ, I honestly believe, and Cole would probably disagree with me here. I think Cole would say Juju is most likely of the two, and he has intel to back that up. I personally think KJ would be the most likely of the two.
I agree. You know what I mean? And I know it,
and I don't want to speak for Cole. I'm just saying I think that's what he would say. But
I agree. I mean, I think there's legitimate intel there that there's interest, like big interest. But that recruitment just scares me. I'm going to be honest with you, man. It's just because who are you dealing with?
KJ's safe, right?
Yeah. You know who you're working with in that recruitment. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not trying to say anything bad about Juju at all. He is a good kid. He's a fantastic prospect, good family. But I just think there are a lot of people involved in that recruitment, if that makes sense. Okay.
Sticky.
Yeah. Whereas KJ Lacey, you know who the competition is, and you know what it's going to take to win it. Like, it is very clear and transparent what it's going to take. And so for me, I always like the known over the unknown.
Alan, you said it best earlier, and one of my sources close to these two guys echoed what you said, which was Juju overall is probably the better quarterback prospect. He's not a runner. KJ, he's short, but he might be the better fit.
Yeah.
You think about what the Auburn transfer did. What's his name at Liberty?
Oh, Malik Willis. Yeah.
Very similar. Now, would that play in the SEC? I don't know. But I think Juju is viewed by some who know a lot more than me as the better quarterback.
Yeah.
KJ might be the better fit.
I wouldn't have said it if I didn't believe that myself, Jeffrey. And I agree 100%. Juju is the better pure passer. I mean, he's put throws on highlight reels that not a lot of guys can make. I mean, he is legit arm talent. But I do love what KJ Lacey brings to the table, and specifically in a Hugh Freeze offense. So, it's going to be interesting to see what decision they make and what direction they go. But because that's going to make the class, right? Like who this quarterback is going to truly make this class. I mean, it's going to be deep across both lines of scrimmage. I believe that. But it's the lines of scrimmage and the quarterback. In my opinion, if you get those right, like you think about Clemson when Dabo had it rolling, what did he have? He had depth on both lines of scrimmage. He had a quarterback, and he had wide receivers that could win in one-on-ones.
Elite.
Yep. And everything else, you know what I mean, the running backs, the other mid-skilled talent, you know, those guys were okay. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they were good players, but they weren't elite. But if you're going to recruit at this level and you're not going to be able to pull a Georgia-type class, well, you better nail offensive line, defensive line, have a couple of studs at wide receiver, and a quarterback that can get them the football, man.
Whew. Man, what a huge! It just keeps the realization of what the next few days is for this class is. I don't know if it's anxiety producing.
Sure, it's got to be for you, man.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about 3 commitments in the next 5 days that truly are going to drive the outcome of this class. Because if you don't get Longstreet, well, you know you got to pivot to one of these other 2. If you don't get Alvin, who are you going to get at running back? I think everybody feels good about Cardi Smith right now, which is great. But it's just like you said, man, the running back, because it's so important in this class, you got to get 2.
Yeah.
And you don't have any right now.
And
quarterback.
You've been recruiting this kid since he was, 9th grade. Auburn has.
Yeah.
And he's right down the road. Man, I don't know. All right, let's see. Here's another Alvin question. Trooper Taylor's towel. Who's next up at running back if Alvin goes elsewhere? This is probably something I should have looked in a little bit more. I mean, when I said Usman Chroma, I think would definitely be the first option. Would you agree with me there?
Hands down, would agree. I also think, and you said his name earlier, it's the young man from Tennessee. I think he's kind of crept up into the number 2 spot. If
Mills
I'm being
Knight,
honest.
let me get his first name. Mills Knight. What is his first name? Man, real story about him. Oh, Shakai Mills Knight. From Chattanooga. Shakai Mills Knight from Chattanooga. We talked about Jasper Parker also was kind of probably a tier 2 guy. Looking back through AK Deer, obviously still in that tier 1 guy, but he's committed, and I don't see that changing.
No, that's going to be a tough one, man.
Anthony Rogers is in there as well.
Yeah, and I think that's one to watch. I honestly do. I think that is one to pay attention to. If you're going to try to take 2 in this class and maybe you land a Mills Knight or a Chroma, maybe if Alvin's off the board, you take a second swing at Turbo Rogers.
I tell you, man, Bo Jackson, the kid from Ohio, Auburn offered him a couple of weeks ago, and he came down to visit Alabama. Dude, if you come all that way to visit Alabama, you got to swing by Auburn. And he didn't. So that ought to tell you, if anybody was interested in Bo Jackson V2, that ought to tell you where his interest lies with Auburn. I mean, right? I mean, that's reading the tea leaves. I mean, you come all the way from Ohio to Tuscaloosa to visit Alabama, and you don't go, well, while I'm down here, I'm going to swing over there and see Auburn too.
Yeah, it kind of lets you know where you stand at the moment. Now, maybe that changes. Look,
sure.
Recruiting is fluid. We all know this. Things change. And so maybe that recruitment gets ramped up some, but I don't see that one happening as of now.
Oh, Connor Morgan. What does our 2025 linebacker board look like, man? I think this was one of the tougher boards that we have tried to assemble, but I will do my best. I can tell you, man, I know. Let me get down here. I know Christian Gass was on there at one point.
Yes. I got some guys I'm watching, and I'm going to give you these names, and you tell me what you think. Because obviously, Jaden Perlotti is a name we've talked about for forever. You know, he's a kid that's probably he's definitely still on the board. How likely is he? I don't know. Right. I wouldn't think very likely at this point. But Christian Gass, Elijah Melendez, Anthony, is it Cruya? Is that how you say his name?
Elijah
And
Melendez. That's the great name.
yeah,
And I'm not talking about the spelling. I'm talking about that's a great name for Auburn guys to know. Tyler Lockhart's another guy.
Tyler Lockhart's a guy to absolutely pay attention to. And then Eric Winters, to me, look, I know they're recruiting him as a safety now.
Right.
To me, he projects as a linebacker. And then obviously Duke Johnson is another kid that, pay attention to. I don't know how likely he is to flip, but he's definitely on the board. But the Cruya kid, I'm watching that. I'm intrigued because if he comes to camp, he's the recent offer here out of South Georgia, I think. Let's see what he does when he comes to camp up, because he's a guy that could absolutely pop up on the board. And then Melendez is a name I'm absolutely tracking on. I think he's a guy there's legitimate big time interest in as an inside linebacker.
Absolutely, I completely agree. He's from Kissimmee,
yes,
Florida. He's committed to Miami. If I'm not mistaken, he was either supposed to or he did visit Auburn this spring.
Was supposed to, and I think he slid in for a visit and we weren't able to see him, or he didn't visit. I'm not exactly sure. I need to ask to see if he ever made it to campus.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on that guy because Auburn is very high on him and thinks there's a shot there. Let's see. Trey Belk. Does Auburn go after Bear Alexander? And if so, does he fit in Durkin's defense? Bear Alexander, big old dog. No doubt about it.
I mean, I'm sure we're going to kick the tires. How likely does he land at Auburn? I don't know. I mean, that's a young man that's extremely talented. But
he's in the transfer portal?
I think he is he's not in the portal yet because he can't enter until the 15th, but his
intentions have been made known.
His intentions have been made known on Twitter, and thus it's Twitter official. Let's put it like that.
Right. I hear you. So he committed to Georgia. He's from Denton, Texas, went to IMG, committed to Georgia out of high school, signed with SC. Is that right?
Signed with Georgia, then transferred after his freshman year to SC, and now he's transferring for his second time. If the transfer,
I remember him.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember him. 2021 class.
Yeah.
2022 class.
2022 class.
That's what I said the first time. Yeah, I remember Big Bear.
Really good player. I mean, I think he made some plays out on the West Coast this year for SC. The defense overall was not good, but I think Bear was a very good player for them. It just, I don't know, man. I don't know the kid personally, but there are rumors as it pertains to him. And kind of some of what his asks are and some of the things around that recruitment. So it's going to be interesting. But if you're talking about skill alone, Bear Alexander upgrades Auburn's defense.
Is he a 3?
Down. Yeah, he's a nose.
He's a nose. Okay. Is it 3 technique would be more of a tackle?
Yeah.
Lining up in the 3 gap.
You got it. Okay. Lining up in between the guard and the tackle right there.
Okay. J-Rock Eagle, top 5 edge book targets on March the 13th were Gibson. Who's Gibson?
Oh, Isaiah Gibson.
Isaiah Gibson. Yeah, he still is.
Mm-hmm.
Smith, Jared Smith still is. Zion Grady still is. Third Scroggins. And Graham, given this current list, how many do you think Auburn lands?
Well, Graham's off the board to Ole Miss already. And I thought about that. And I actually think, who's the kid from Jemison? I think he may even be higher on the board.
Yes. I tell you what, of those 4, though, I wouldn't be surprised if Auburn was able to get 2.
Agreed. I mean, I think they could absolutely get 2. You need 1. Okay, you've already got 1. And Grayshawn Swain. There you go, Zach. Thanks for the save on that. I would probably replace Grayshawn Swain with Talib Graham, who's off the board to Ole Miss. But anyway, I think they land third Scroggins. Like that, I think that's going to be a guy they're going to land. You've already got in Caleb Falk, you've already got another buck in this class. You would probably love to land 3. I think that may even be the number given what they've got on the roster right now. I think they may be looking to really load up in this class. So of that, can you get one of Grady or Smith? I mean, maybe Gibson if things break the right way.
Sure.
Maybe it's a CJ May type. I don't know. I mean, he's another kid that could play. I mean, He could play buck. My guess is he probably lines up on the strong side. I mean, I think he's kind of a 5 technique if his body feels out the right way, just because he doesn't have the explosion and twitch I think you need from that position to be a down in, down out pass rusher. But an athletic kid, good football player, just not what I think Auburn's looking for at that buck position. But a lot of options there. But I think it's possible to land 2 for sure, Jeffrey.
Zach in the back. Must have missed this. Is that who's the 7th school in 7 years, dating back to high school? Oh, is that Bear Alexander?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, man. There's some.
That's what you were referring to.
Yeah,
I mean, just a glimpse of what you're referring to. Okay,
right. A little. You know how kids kind of bounce around on AAU basketball teams?
Oh yeah,
that's kind of that disease right now, man. I'm just, I'm constantly changing. And I don't know that you can build consistency when you bring in players that have that kind of mindset of, I constantly need to change.
BBAU 10. Who do you think will be the next 3 to commit after Carday Smith? Well, we talked about the possibility of Alvin Henderson. We talked about Husan Longstreet. Both of those guys have commitments in the next 5 days. Dante Core,
yes,
throw in there as well. Jacoby Ward is a guy to keep an eye on.
Absolutely, Jacoby Ward is a guy to keep an eye on. And I'm going to put this out there. I think it's possible. I know what Anquan Fegan said on the record. Sure. I also think it's possible that he makes a commitment, here relatively soon as well. Like, neither way would it shock me. I mean, I think I've heard both sides of this one. So, but he's a guy I'm still tracking. I think he's a guy that Auburn is very much in it with, and a guy that could very much have a commitment sometime relatively soon. So he would be on my list to pay attention to for sure. And then what does Eric Winters do? Does he decide to shut it down? Not shut it down, but decide to make a commitment before he goes on visits, or does he want to wait and get to June? Who knows?
A lot of names to be tracking as far as over the next 3 to 4 weeks.
And CJ Wiley, I think he wants to make a commitment relatively soon. So he's definitely somebody to pay attention to. Top 3 of Auburn, Georgia, and Alabama. That's it.
Boy, he's good.
He is, man. I mean, that's another one that's ranked as a 3-star by some sites. And when you watch that tape, you're like, how can you look at that kid and say he's a 3-star? Like, I just
slap a 3-star on him.
Nah, on 3 got it right on this one.
University of Auburn. I've heard that name a time or two. Are we done at safety if we land Eric Winters and Anquan Fegans? If not, who are the other top targets? I tell you what, I don't think I do. They might be done at safety. Cole and I were discussing this the other day. I mean, there's Eric Winters, there's Anquan Fegans. Anquan Fegans obviously being the more prototypical safety.
Mm-hmm.
But after that, man, names are scarce. Targets are scarce.
They really are. Guys that I think there's a young man from Kentucky that I thought we might make a move with.
Oh, yeah.
We may still, but that's one that I think Kentucky has decided they're going to go all in on. And I just, for probably what the price tag is that Kentucky's ready to pay, I don't think Auburn's ready to do that for a safety, if I'm being honest. Like, I think that Auburn has more than enough NIL money. But I think when you're looking at positions, you're saying, okay, what gives me quality value back for the price? And I don't know that investing that much in that kind of a safety gives you the ROI that you're looking for.
That's definitely something that I would be tracking should, if and when, Anquan Fegans and or Eric Winters make their commitment. See what old Braden's got up to this week. What do y'all think has made CJ Wiley the potential top receiver on the board, and who would you compare him to? Cole wrote after his visit that he thinks Caleb Cunningham might be ranked higher in the rankings, but certainly CJ Wiley is up there in his opinion when it comes to Auburn's wide receiver board. Cole, I think, even said that he could be the top wide receiver. So that's what Braden here is talking about. What do you think has made CJ Wiley the position? Well, he first of all, I wouldn't say he's built like Cam Coleman, but he's a big guy, and not big Anthony Mix big,
right? But long.
Cam Newton, yeah. There you go.
Yeah, very plays the ball very well in the air. Very fluid in his routes. Good deep speed. I would say more fast than quick. But a guy that I think translates very well into Hugh Freeze's offense, and a kid that, look, when these coaches are evaluating them, they're looking at their character as much as they're looking at the athletic traits. Like, those are things that go hand in hand. And I think they also like the athletic background. Obviously, his father, very successful football player, knows how to carry himself. I think he was a pro, correct? I know he was. Oh yeah, and he was an All-American at LSU, but I believe he played in the NFL as well. And so when you have that level of lineage and a father that's been in the pros, knows what it's like, knows what it takes, typically those kids have really great work ethic. And in today's age of the transfer portal, you're looking for kids that are not afraid of competition, and they're willing to grind and stick their nose in the fan and continue to push through adversity. And I think CJ Wiley's one of those kind of kids. I think that's the vibe they've gotten from him. If I had to put a comp on him, I'd probably compare him to Will Shepherd from Vanderbilt this past year. I think he's a kid that could be a vertical threat in the passing game, and somebody that's going to be, a top half of the league wide receiver. So that would be my comp for him. Very similar body type and frame, and if he could be that kind of player at the next level, I think it would be a wonderful pickup for Auburn if you can land this kid.
I tell you what, man, he just tweeted out a pic of him running track, and as we were speaking, and man, he is built. He's probably more muscular than Cam, but as far as
oh yeah, look at him.
he is tall, he is long. I mean, that's a Hugh Freeze wide receiver right there.
Yeah, it's prototype, man. You think about the guys he's been successful with, the Laquan Treadwells, the Dante Moncriefs. Moncrief's a guy that looks a lot like that.
Yep.
Other players that he's recruited, I'm trying to think of the two wide receivers that are both still in the NFL right now.
Simpson.
Oh, this is great podcast, Alan. Good job.
What are you doing?
Trying to think of Hugh Freeze wide receivers.
DK Metcalf.
There you go. That's one of them. And the other one plays for Philly.
Oh, my knowledge of NFL guys is somewhat limited.
I hear you on that.
We'll come back to it. It'll come to you.
AJ Brown.
That's what I said the first time.
There you go.
AJ Brown. Yes. I always envisioned him in a Steelers uniform.
That's because of who's the other Brown kid? Oh, we're gonna have a who's that guy?
Oh, AJ Brown. Oh, Antonio Brown.
Antonio Brown. There you go.
I need to pay attention to the damn chat more.
I know, because Zach,
every one of my questions.
Zach in the back is like hooking us up, and he's saying it like 3 times before I'm looking down at my damn phone.
He finally did all caps on the Brown. You see that?
Oh, I did, man. The private chat is still undefeated, Zach.
Oh, let's do Augustus McCray.
Yes, sir.
I'm glad you ain't scared to be lazy. Wouldn't recommend you much. Last year's top signed group was a wide receiver. What position group do you all see being the headliner this year?
Ooh.
Lines?
Offensive line. Yeah, lines of scrimmage, period. Offensive line right now, but I think defensive line. Vontrell's going to he's going to get a couple, man, in this class. I think he's going to hang on to what he's got now. I firmly believe that. Like at first, I thought, okay, you're probably going to lose the kid from Opelika. Like he's going to go elsewhere. And now, I don't feel that way anymore, Jeffrey. No, I don't know how you think.
I do not. Dude, Malik has been to Auburn. Is well documented on his profile on On3, but he's been there like twice as many times. I remember last week at practice, we were out there watching, and I look up and there's Malik. He didn't. He was just there. So yes, I feel much better about Malik Autry sticking with Auburn than I did a month or two ago.
Agreed. And so you got Malik Autry as your 3 tech right now. Then you turn around, you got Jordan Crawford on the nose. Maybe you can get Nathaniel. At Nathaniel Marshall as your 5 tech, and then who do you bring in as that 4th or 5th defensive lineman in this class? I think that's going to be interesting. And as far as Bucks go, when you're talking about line of scrimmage, and I think you can roll the Bucks in with that line of scrimmage.
Sure.
You've already got Jacaleb Falk. Can you add a 3rd Scroggins? Can you add the young man from Enterprise? If you can get one of those 2, I think you're feeling really good about this defensive line class as well.
Hey, backing up to that linebacker board question, do not count out J.J. Falk playing in the middle.
I'd been told that too, man. So that's the interesting part to me, and that's why when you start thinking of all these edges that Auburn's talking about bringing in, it's because I think they don't know where they're going to play that kid just yet.
I think if he was to report to practice tomorrow, I think he would start out in the middle, and that was just some good intel we came across. I think that's why maybe you're looking at so many edges right now. Maybe he's not considered an edge on Auburn's board right now.
Right. He's a versatile kid that can play either or right now, and I think that's kind of their recruiting best available, right?
Right.
Because you've seen more buck targets out there right now than you've seen inside linebacker targets.
Absolutely. Welders AU. Have not heard much on Naeem Alford, neither have I. Has he been on campus again in the new calendar year? I do not believe so, not since he committed to Ohio State. Does he have a visit to the Plains on the docket? He does not, but he will. That's the guy I expect to take an official visit in the summer. But he has not been back to Auburn. I don't know that he was here. Let me check. Naeem Alford. Let's see. When the last time he visited was December of 2023. So, no, he has not visited this calendar year. Has not visited in the spring. But I do expect him. Auburn's still recruiting him. Wesley McGriff's still recruiting him. Auburn's got ends there at Parker. If nothing else, the kid will be back for an official visit and probably a game or two. Oh, bow and arrow. How about, Auburn going to Nike?
I like it, man. I think it was a good move for us.
Swish.
Yeah.
Swoosh.
Honestly, I don't think this changes recruiting at all in football, but in basketball. And even in basketball, I don't think it's the move it would have been before 2020. Like prior to 2020, moving to Nike would have been a massive deal in basketball.
Yes.
I think now it's just a very nice bonus.
Sure, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
And which brings me to this question. Does the move to Nike help with AJ DeBonsa? Yes, but I don't think it's massive.
No, I don't think it hurt. I don't think it hurts you for sure. I mean, he has a partnership with Nike. You're now affiliated with Nike. You can kind of leverage those contacts somewhat to make sure that you have a Nike NIL deal continue on with this man and this young man, and they can know that, Auburn's also represented by Nike, and so he's going to be taken care of at a Nike school. So all those things line up. It's what you and I talked about, access to a deeper talent pool. Now, Bruce Pearl has the kind of cachet that he can walk into any gym in the country, and he's got the ability to talk to kids. But when you do it with that Nike logo on and you're Bruce Pearl, now it makes a little bit more of a difference.
AJ DeBonsa. And I will say this, man. Him and his dad, they love Auburn. I talked to both of them after his official visit, and looking forward to seeing what Auburn can do with him. It's going to be tough. You saw his profile. You saw all those ones everywhere. Number one player in the world. So be curious to see, but, absolutely. Does it help? Sure it does.
And with the turmoil at Kentucky, who do they hire? Because obviously Kentucky was a huge piece for him. And I don't know that changes, but maybe it does. Look, Cal's a fantastic recruiter. And I know Kentucky thinks they can do better, and, that the things haven't gone exactly how they wanted to, but be careful, man. I'm telling you, sometimes fans, they seem to want something new. They want something next, and sometimes you end up with Brian Harsin. So just watch yourself.
Be careful what you ask for.
Be careful what you ask for.
Be curious to see if Arkansas becomes a player for DeBonsa.
I think they probably will. I think Cal's very well networked there.
Let's see. Matt_M McT. If you can take a shot at predicting our 2024 offensive line class, absolutely we can. Don't know how accurate it will be, but Auburn has Spencer Doland. They have Tavares Dice. We feel like they'll add Carly Smith.
Yep.
We feel good about Auburn's chances with Jacoby Ward.
Yes. Steve Wiltfong has a prediction in for
Broderick Scholl.
Yes. And then you have two others that are also on the board that I think Auburn would absolutely take at any point in this recruiting cycle if they wanted to, and that's Andrew Babalola. And that's the kid from Georgia.
Perry? I mean, shoot, he just said an official visit.
Yeah, he sure did.
Josh Petty.
Yes, Josh Petty. I think they would take either one of those two and would not think twice about doing it. So
I wouldn't predict both of those guys.
No, I don't know that I would predict either.
I agree. Wiltfong does have the show.
So
but
can
again,
you? Yeah,
that's
so can
trending.
You, right, that's trending. So can you take a shot at predicting? Okay. So let's go with Broderick Scholl for the moment.
Oh, we forgot Ty Buster.
Yeah, and Ty Buster.
So you've got 3 offensive line commitments: Spencer Dolan, Ty Buster, Tavares Dice, Carday Smith will make it 4. So now you're looking for 3 more.
Yep.
2 to 3 more.
2 to 3 more, and I would go with Jacoby Ward and Broderick Scholl. Those would be, those would be the 2 I'd feel comfortable predicting at this moment. And then, like I said, if they could get that 7th and it's one of those 2, they'll absolutely push for it. I wouldn't predict it, but I think they're going to go down swinging on both those kids.
I feel good about those first 5, which was Carday and Jacoby.
Yep.
And then if you can get 2 of the 10 big dogs.
Yeah, because there are others. There's obviously the Ward kid, or not Ward.
You got Gaston.
Juan Gaston. That's what I was talking about.
Dontrell Glover, if you want him.
I don't know, man.
Cortez Smith.
They love that kid. I think they would take him if they could get him.
The thing about Dontrell Glover is he's probably a good, and he's teammates with, he's Langston Hughes' kid. But the thing about him is they project him at center, and I don't think they want a center in this class.
Well, and I think they think Ty Buster can play center if they needed to.
If they needed to, that's right.
You know what I mean? So they kind of already have that spot taken.
That's right. All right, question 15 ended up good for us. Welders AU. Have not heard much on Mal Waldrop. Our Michael DeBose guys we didn't mention, and I passed over them when I was looking through the offer list. Are these guys still priorities at Auburn? Will Auburn take more interior offensive line or OTs in this class? Let's see. If they end up with 7, I think they will have 4 OTs and 3 interior guys.
I think that's exactly what I think, Jeffrey.
And don't get me wrong, both of those guys, I wouldn't predict them in Auburn's class.
No,
we didn't, and there's a reason for that. I think both of them are probably tier 2 guys, and I don't know if Auburn gets to them. And these are just my opinions, man.
My opinion as well. I mean, I think they are very high on Jacoby Ward. I think they're also high on who's the kid from Kansas? Is it Keontae or?
Yes. Oh, yes. I forgot him. I didn't even. Is Keaton?
Yes.
Keaton something.
Keaton Smith.
Keaton Jones.
Keaton Jones. Okay. Common last name. There we go. Yeah.
From Kansas.
Keaton Jones, another guy, interior. So I think you would have to get to either one of those 2. I think you would have to get beyond Ward and Keaton Jones, in my opinion.
You know, Austin Pay visited Auburn. He's a big offensive tackle from Utah.
Correct. I mean, I think that's another kid that's in the mix in that top group that they would take.
Mario Nash, maybe?
I think that.
Nick Brooks. I'm just reading some familiar names.
Nick Brooks for sure. I think he is absolutely on the list and somebody that Auburn's very interested in. I just don't think he's very likely right now.
Offensive line looking good. You get Carday Smith, you get Jacoby Ward, you got 5 guys, and that's impressive. That would be a fantastic 3/4 of offensive line class.
You've already filled your needs, right? So now you're just swinging at quality.
Boom.
And if you lose somebody out of the class, I mean, you don't want it. But if you're landing one of those guys and somebody else falls out, I don't think you necessarily feel terrible about it either. So, yeah, I mean, everybody they've got in this class is a kid they want. You know what I mean? Like that they want to retain who they bring in. But you also know that when numbers start to get deep, sometimes kids can start to kind of look around and say, do they have room for me in this class? Am I going to be able to play? Those are just the natural questions that get asked. So Jake Thornton will have to be prepared for that part of it if they're going to continue to try to take kids if they get beyond 6.
Alan, we're going to end this show on predictions, and we're going to go down chronological order. Carday Smith,
Auburn.
Alvin Henderson,
Miami.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
This is not who he's signing with. We're predicting who he's going to commit to. You
Correct.
got Miami. Okay.
Yep.
I'm going to stick with Auburn because that's all the information I have. I know Chad, I know Steve, both put in Penn State. But as of Tuesday afternoon, all I had was it was still Auburn. So
okay.
I'm going to stick with Auburn there. Dante Core.
Auburn.
And who signed? Longstreet.
Texas A&M.
A&M. So could be up and down week.
I think so.
Up and down week.
I think so. And I think Auburn fans should just prepare themselves for the ride. And look, I don't say Miami with Alvin with any level of confidence. That's just me. I'm just throwing a dart at the board on him, man. And I'm with you. Like I said, when I asked today, there was confidence at Auburn that they could land Alvin. And I think they're going to work to do that all the way down to the last second.
Let me ask you this. If I change that to we're not going to predict who they're committing to, but we're going to predict who they're signing with, and I said Alvin Henderson, what would you say?
Auburn.
There you go. I think so. I think so too. I think Dante Core, I think Alvin, and Carday Smith. Here's the thing about these four guys that we just mentioned. Right now, the only one we feel really good about is the 4-star offensive tackle. If Auburn were to miss him and get the three guys over here, the fans, the board would go crazy because Auburn can't sign tackles.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Guaranteed.
So here we are predicting the 4-star offensive tackle in-state kid to choose Auburn, and we're not sure about the other three, except for Dante Core.
How the world has changed, Jeffrey.
But anyway, it could change. Y'all keep an eye on the corner, man. We're going to be posting updates when we get them. I'm going to be making calls throughout the day, both sides, all sides of this, and try to keep everybody up to date as best as we can. And we'll be back Sunday night for the call-in show. Obviously, we will be doing our best at Auburn Live on 3. If you haven't already, go check us out. AU1 for promo code 2 months for $1. AU1, capital A, capital U, 1. The new numeral 1 for the 2 months for $1. One more time for Miss Jessica Andrews, fantastic realtor. Give her a call with the Talents Group, 334-704-4442. She has a lot of 4s, but she is a 5-star realtor. Give her a call and tell her we sent you. All right, folks, that's going to do it, man. We appreciate everybody listening. We appreciate everybody watching. We truly do. For Alan Head, Mr. Zach in the back, and Mr. Cole Pinkston somewhere on the East Coast, I'm Jeffrey Lee, man. Y'all stay at that left lane. See ya.